This next speaker, I adore her. She writes amazing books, and you should read them. And she's also great up on stage. So I won't take much time here, but catching the wave, the top 5 trends in the convergence of social, big data, and analytics. I can't tell you how many times I've been hearing these terms lately, and I'm really excited to hear Sandy Carter tell us what the trends are with these. Sandy Carter, VP of Social Business and Evangelism Sales at IBM.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Okay, well, good afternoon. So I have to tell you, I feel honored to be on the stage because we've had such great panelists today, right? Don't you think? Outstanding. And I'm just very thankful that I'm going after Guy Kawasaki, right? Now I have to tell you a funny story. So Guy actually wrote a recommendation for my book, and he was looking at my title one day, and he goes, you know, you should be an evangelist. You should be an evangelist. Doesn't IBM have a title, evangelist? I said, you know, they don't, but I'm going to create it. I'm going to, you know, put it up there. I'm going to create it. So I did, and I had to fly to China. And I took with me my grandmother's cross. So I was wearing a cross on my neck. I went into a small city in China. I got pulled out of line because they thought I was an evangelist. So I was in interrogation, this is a true story, for 3 hours, explaining why I was actually not an evangelist, not a missionary coming into their country. And they said, well, who do you work for? I said, IBM. And I said, I can prove it, I can give you my business card. So I took out my business card, and on my business card it said, evangelist. So I was there another 2 hours until my team came. So true story. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I've got some really fabulous things I want to talk to you about some trends that I think all of us in the room can take advantage of. I'd love for you guys to follow me on Twitter. Please tweet. You saw the WITI Summit. My hashtag is Sandy_Carter, so you can also tweet as we go along. And I would love for you to also follow my blog, because as I travel around the world, and I've now been to 78 countries talking about social as an evangelist, I blog about different case studies, so please make sure you follow that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just really briefly talk to you about what social is, since I know that social is still becoming part of everybody's vocabulary. So a social business uses social media to become more engaging, so that's a two-way dialogue, become more transparent, sharing information bottom up, top down, and being nimble. So you can start a marketing campaign in the morning. By noon, you can make changes and adjust, be very nimble. Now, there's a lot of myths out there. You know, there are myth busters. Well, one myth I'm going to bust for you guys is that there is an ROI for social. So McKinsey & Company, I think you guys know them. They're one of the top management consulting companies out there. They've now done a report 3 years in a row proving and showcasing that social has strong return on investment. Whether that's in the marketing field, increasing marketing effectiveness, or sales, increasing revenue, or customer service, the list goes on and on. So there is definitely a strong return on investment for social. Because of that, we see that over 79% of companies are starting to use social, but only 22% say they know actually what to do, how to use it right, how to get it adopted, which is a great opportunity for everyone sitting here in this room today. Now, I found this really interesting, brand new report that came out, millennials looking for a job in your company. 45% of them said they will take a lower paying job if your company does not use social inside the corporation. So doesn't enable them to use Facebook or doesn't allow them to work in communities or microblogs like they're used to working today. 45%. Huge. And then the other number that blew me away from IBM's recent CEO study, world's largest CEO study, 73% of CEOs said that social will be the #1 way to engage a client over the next 3 years. Now, why is that so amazing? 2 years ago, that number was 1%. So in 2 years, it went from 1% to now 73%. So I'm really thrilled. I helped start the social business group at IBM about 4 years ago. We've been #1 in market share 4 years. And what I'd like to show you is how social is transforming businesses and how you guys can leverage technology as a competitive weapon in your companies today. So I want you to consider a couple of things. These are true stories. There is a police department who is now using social, and they have reduced crime in their city by 30% using social analytics. Social analytics enabled them to see that the pay phones that they had in convenience stores were located in the wrong area, was increasing rape. They were able to identify this with analytics, move the phones, reduce the crime in their city by 30%. Now, there is also in Mexico a cement manufacturer. They actually just won most innovative company in the world, cement company. And they just launched a huge global product in record time, not by opening a new factory, but by creating a social network. They also won Harvard Business School Management 2.0 Leadership Award, a cement company. And then finally, we all know about Mr. Obama. Do you know, though, that he did not do any opinion polling in his campaign? He used all social analytics, social networking, and he was able to predict the final swing vote by 0.2%, leveraging social. So if you think about that, we talked about social networking, we talked about analytics, and of course, all the data that's out there. So what we see in the world, what's happening right now, is that social is coming in strong, being used now in business, not just personal. We saw the CEO number. Big data. I mean, have you guys gone a day without someone saying big data? Last night I had dinner with Cheryl, and I think, where's Cheryl? There she is. I think you said big data like 17 times. And analytics, social analytics, so hot. So if you think about that and that convergence, what draws them all together is our business processes. And if you look at inserting social and big data and analytics into your business process, that is the future. So what I'd like to do is to walk you through what we see as 5 trends. And I did this as David Letterman. So you know David Letterman does 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. But we're going to do 5, and we're going to count down. Now I have to tell you, last week I was in Japan, and they didn't know who David Letterman was. So it was quite hard to explain. They kept going, and why do you count down? And I'm like, oh, it's David Letterman. Who's David Letterman? I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. So we're going to count down, and I'm going to talk about trends that we see. So our 5th trend, number 5, is the power of social sharing and why expertise and trust, you've heard trust mentioned on the stage by every speaker today, why trust matters. We're going to talk about a shift from demographics and segmentation to one, the power of one, the individual. We're going to talk about innovation, so a great conversation here from Comcast. Where are the Comcast, the two dynamic duo? Where are they? There they are. So innovation, part of the new secret weapon, but using innovation with crowdsourcing social and predictive analytics. So not just with a person, but predictive analytics and crowdsourcing. Number 2, social networks are the new production line. Social networks are the new production line. We're going to talk about what that means. And then number 1 is a personal challenge, because number 1 has to do with your personal leadership, the trend that we're seeing, and those people who make that transition the fastest, we believe will be leaders to guide us into the future. So let me talk about the 5th trend. So the 5th trend is the shift that's taken place around information. So think about, I'll think about when I went to school, because many of you are much younger than I am. When I went to school, I got great grades for memorizing information, right? How much could I memorize? How much could I consume? And then I would spew that back out. And in fact, when I started with IBM, it was how much information I knew. That was part of my value to IBM. But not anymore. In fact, my daughter the other day brought home her homework assignment. It wasn't to memorize anything. It was to find facts and to make sure that the facts she found on the internet were accurate and that they were given by an expert, someone that could be trusted. Now think about that shift. She's learning how to find information and validate that it's true, because I hate to tell you, everything on the internet isn't true. So this, yes, really. So this is an interesting trend. So you're moving from memorization to finding a trusted source of information. Now this is really powerful. I wanted to show you this. Women today, actually, who are the #1 buyers in the marketplace, so our buying power is greater than any other group. The #1 place that we go to for information before we buy, our trusted source, is not a company website, but it's Twitter, it's blogs, it's our friends. Pinterest, very high. So because of that, women are trusting this source of information, and trust drives purchase. So social is going to become a part of finding a trusted source of information. So let me tell you guys a story. I did a piece of work for the United Nations, and they wanted to look back and analyze the Egyptian crisis. Do you guys remember that Egyptian crisis? It was started with a tweet, right? So their assumption was that the person with the most expertise, who was most influential, was the person with the most followers on Twitter. And they would have been wrong, because the person who actually tweeted about Egypt at least 4 times a day, who had the most followers, was Justin Bieber. You guys know Justin? Oh, you like, oh, look at this, the Bieb, she's got it. So this is really interesting. I don't know why he was tweeting about it, but he was tweeting about it 4 times a day. Now, you can see down there the little graph, and this is all done with technology. You see the little graph. So he would tweet it, and then, of course, my daughter and her friends would retweet whatever he tweets, but then no one else picked it up, right? So he didn't have that level of influence, that level of trust about the Egyptian crisis. Now, what if I had run this on music? Much higher, right? Or perfume, of course, because he has one of the most successful perfumes today, of course, but not on Egypt. In fact, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there was this gentleman who I removed his picture just to protect his safety. He had far fewer followers, but he was much more trusted and viewed as an expert in this particular field. So that tells you that in the future, and for your company starting today, when you're looking for expertise in the marketplace, you can't just look at the number of people who are following or the number of fans. It really depends upon how many people understand your subject matter expertise and the influence that you garner in the marketplace. So that means that you got to use technology. So where's Carolyn? Carolyn, we had a board meeting last night, and we talked about this a lot, that your influence and who you influence, who you trust, really makes a lot of difference, right? And that's what you see happening here. Everybody's going to be using technology, one of the things we talked about last night. So this is one of my networks of my customer sets. And what this tool shows me, encircled in red, are those most trusted and expert people in my customer set who influence other customers. So now I know who they are. I can ask them questions about my next product. I can seek out advice about service and support, about my marketing. And guess what? If I can convince those people, guess what they do? They influence their network, who influences their network. And so now I've got a group of trusted advisors. So social network analysis, so combining social with analytics, using all that big data, now helps me to visualize those transactions, visualize those relationships, and identify who the experts are and which relationships are most important. Extremely important as we move forward. So I wanted to show you real quickly, I had this on my iPhone today. I wanted to give you a real quick example of what we're seeing happening in the marketplace. So this is the discovery of an answer. Now, finding an expert. So you remember that assignment I told you that my daughter got? She had a list of questions. She had to go figure out who was the right expert. So that was my daughter. She's, 11 years old. But what about us? We have to do this, right? We have to find an expert in our own businesses? Who's the best in fiber optics? I know who I'm going to call, right? Who's the best in social? Who's the best in? How do you find that person? And that is the crux of what we see happening today. So this is a quick example. I've mocked this up for a bank, but imagine it for an airline or an elevator company or a fiber optics company or whatever company you can imagine. So here you see on an iPhone, which is my tool of choice, I have down there, I need experts either in planning or investment services. And what I can do is blow those out and really look for an expert in a particular topical area. As I do that, using social networks and social analytics, pulling in all that big data, I now get a list of people who are experts in a particular topic. For this one, it's going to be on a charitable trust service. So imagine that. So on my mobile device, I've now scanned and found the top experts and their profiles in a particular topical area. So here it's charitable trust. I can go in and look at Bill. I can see what his title is. I can see who has rated him. So think about Amazon. You guys all use Amazon? You know how we rate a book, and if you like this book, you might write another book? This is the same thing for expertise, right? Using social ratings to rate people's skills, what they do. Are they trustable? Same thing using social. Now, the really cool thing is, how do I get a hold of that expert? So I can now call them, or if I'm going after Carolyn, I know to text her now. I'm not going to email her, but I'm going to text her, or I can email, I can instant message, I can use my social network, so now I have a way to get a hold of that particular person. And imagine now being able to favorite that person with the skills and the expertise and trust, just like I do a book in Amazon, and the power that exists. In fact, if you look at the ROI of that shift, what McKinsey says is that using social to identify an expert, to find them in your business for your customer, 30% increase in speed, 20 to 25% increase in productivity, and more successful innovations because you're spending less time trying to find that expert and not searching for someone who has the right answers. We just leveraged this in a company in Europe that's an airline company, and they said for every 5 minutes of time we save them on finding an expert. So on average, when you have a problem in an airplane, it takes 45 minutes just to find out who the right expert is on that particular plane. For every 5 minutes, it saves them 17 euros per 5 minutes. So it's a huge savings in terms of ROI and a huge leveraging of big data, analytics, and social to get the job done. Does that make sense? Hugely powerful. So I put this one in as well. I used this with my team in Japan last week because they're big on everywhere I went. Louis Vuitton was everywhere. Louis Vuitton does this today. And they're extremely creative, but what they wanted to do is to find experts across their different areas. So they do fragrance, they do bags, they do jewelry, they do accessories, and they wanted to share information about what works in different regions. So they've used that little mobile device to help them find the right expert throughout their company, not even going outside yet, just across their company to drive up productivity and to really drive a strong return on investment using big data, analytics, and social. So it helps you to put an ROI around it and helps you to really capitalize on this particular trend. Okay? So number 5, we're moving from hoarding of information, memorizing it, to figuring out who the expert is, who can be trusted, so that now you're sharing information, and that's going to be the way that in the future that people's value in a company goes up. It's based on sharing the information, not hoarding the information anymore. Good thing for women who are very good at collaborating and sharing information. Okay, let's do number 4. Countdown number 4. Our 4th trend is that value in the future will not be based just on a market segment or a demographic, which, by the way, I went to Harvard Business School and I studied marketing. That was really what I studied, market segmentation and demographics. So I got to change because now it's all about figuring out the needs of an individual, not just the mass market, but the needs of the individual. So let me show you what that might look like. So I found this really fascinating. So Royal Bank of Canada. Anyone here from Royal Bank of Canada? So Royal Bank of Canada had a big challenge. They were rated number 5 in their market on customer sat. Number 5. This is not very good, right? Because it's a lot more effective to keep a happy customer than to go get a new customer. So number 5. And what the customers told us as we did our analytical data was that Royal Bank of Canada treated them like a number, not like a person, but like a number. They weren't personalized enough. So one of the things that they did is they created something called the RBC Advice Center. It's essentially a community. It's secure, right, because they're a bank, and it's personalized. In fact, they personalized it based on social analytics. So if I knew that Heather is gonna, where's Heather? Is Heather in the room from EMC? No? Okay. So if I knew that someone was gonna have a baby, I might target that advice center on maybe a 529K for college savings, right? To make sure that their baby is ready to go for college. Or if I knew that someone was moving, I might target that advice center, and you can figure that out, right? From Facebook. People post, I'm moving, I've had a baby, all the baby pictures, so you can determine that information, which is what they did. They personalized this based on analytics. They had customer experts come in based on what that customer was interested in. They moved their value from being number 5 to number 1 in a year. 1 year. 1 year. Amazing story, personalizing. Now let me show you this. This is one of my favorites. So this is what technology can do. So in the future, everybody is going to be a technologist, right? Whether you're a marketeer or a seller, whatever you are, you will have to deal with technology. So I love this. This is an iPad, and what we're able to do now with that iPad is to determine heat maps by individual. So I can determine by individual where you go on a website. So you can see the red marks in this particular person. The red marks are where they went the most. That's where they kept touching. You can see blank spots. That means they never even went to that real estate. So if I, as a company, am investing in those areas, maybe I don't want to invest if I don't have any individuals who are going to those spots. And then you can see some of the green and yellow, so you can tell. So what does this do? Well, this now enables me to meet an individual's need using technology. It enables me to optimize that content, because I can learn over time, my technology can learn over time, and then I can engage them not on what everybody likes and where everybody goes, but where that individual wants to engage me. Pretty powerful, right? Now let me show you a couple more things that really get into this as well. So this is a true story airline. How many of you guys fly? Okay, good. Everybody. So I actually really like this. So here's an example. It's a real customer of mine. I can't tell you the name yet because they consider this a competitive advantage. Instead of just looking at the masses of a frequent flyer program, they're going to look at an individual as a whole individual. So they're going to look at your frequent flyer status, your social status. What's your clout score? They're going to look at elements of what you like to buy. What matters to you? Is it an upgrade, or do you want me to give you, an extra bag of peanuts on the flight? What matters to you? And then when you're standing at the gate in Chicago, which I was, waiting for a flight which delayed, which I had happen, as I'm standing there, I have no clout on the airline, no clout on this airline. A customer service rep came out, went immediately to the people that were high-leveled frequent flyers, but then came over to me. Because I was actually tweeting because I was upset. I was sitting on the ground for 5 hours, and I have 27,000 Twitter followers. So they came to me just as they came to 2 other people who flew them, who were, very frequent flyers with them as well. So you can see here, this particular airline, frequent flyers, are they loyal? Are they brand agnostic? What's the clout score of that person? Do they matter? If they're tweeting away and you got 2 followers, they're probably going to let you tweet away. But if you have a high clout score, they're now going to customize what they do for you as an individual based on your digital reputation. Did you know that Forrester said to get on a board or to be CEO in 3 years, one of the top 3 criteria will be your digital reputation in 3 years, your clout score, or some measure like that, whatever you choose to do. And you can see this airline is using that right away. Okay, one of my favorite examples, real client, again, blinded example, targeting an individual. So I have 2 daughters. I have one daughter that's a fashionista. You know, it used to be I'd go shopping, and if I was wearing pink, she wanted to wear pink. If I was in blue, if I loved it, she bought it. But now I go, and she goes, Mom, do you like this outfit? I'm like, yeah, I really like that. She goes, I'm not buying this. Anybody else have that kind of daughter? Okay. But if her friends like it, she is going to buy it, even though she tells me all the time, Mom, I don't want to be like everybody. I want to be unique. What she wants is she wants to be like all of her friends. So look at this individual. This is an individualized hanger, which I think is really cool. On the left-hand side, one of my retailers in Asia. See that little digital counter on there? That's the number of Facebook likes that jacket has received. Yeah, cool, right? Now, it even gets better though. So I don't care what the rest of the world thinks about, but I care about my 27,000 Twitter followers. So I can go up to the hanger and I can input my social information, and then it will give me how many of my friends like that jacket. So it's customized to an individual. Really cool, right? On the right-hand side, this is one of my clients in Korea. You see those little outfits there? Same kind of concept. They've now taken the whole outfit and they've determined the top outfits in Korea, in the United States, in the world. Or you can say, you know, I'm in Korea. A lot of Koreans want to dress like Americans. What's the most popular outfits in America? Or again, you can input your social information and it shows you your friends' most wished for, liked, or purchased items. In both cases, what happened here is analytics helped to really gain a knowledge at an individual level of what was impactful to that person, and gave them what they needed to act, gave them conviction to act, right? So it's not the mom anymore, it's all their friends out there who are voting on this particular concept. So it's happening live today in Asia, hopefully soon to come to the United States. So big data, analytics, social, driving down to the individual. Got that one, number 4? Okay. Number 3, innovation. So innovation has now become a huge part of corporate culture. In fact, if you look at the last CEO study, the number 1 feature or characteristic that CEOs said they were looking for in their senior teams was thinking outside the box, someone who could be creative. But as you look at innovation, the other characteristic CEOs are looking for is someone who can accept ideas from others. Because we are moving, again, from a couple of people innovating to innovation being opened up to the crowd, right? Crowdsourcing, employees, customers, influencers, but then applying predictive capability so that it's not just what the crowd wants today, but applying predictive capability, predicting what will be popular in the future. Okay, so let me show you a little bit about this one. So Coach, so I used Louis Vuitton from France, I had to use Coach from the United States. Anybody in here like Coach? Okay, so I like this story a lot. So CIO of Coach, looking at brand awareness with the chief marketing officer, finds that there's a lot of mature, experienced women who love Coach. But the next generation of buyers, 12 to 24, aren't really as excited about Coach as the more experienced professional woman is. So that's their lifeline of pipeline coming through the system, right? So they decide, what could we do to get that next generation? How could we innovate there? They tried several things with their designers, but it just didn't work. So they decided to open up the development and creation of the next designs to the crowd. So they opened this up, started a contest online with a community, attracted mostly 12 to 24-year-olds, and they designed the future purse that they thought would be a bestseller. Now, they also engaged the employees. The employees came in and said, wow, if you put that many sparkles or bling on it, price might go way high, so here's what you might want to think about. Everybody designed purses. They selected the winners, and guess what? The crowdsourced bags sold out in every store. Now, at first, Coach thought, well, that's because we've advertised them as crowdsourced bags. So they ran this again, And what they found was that even without any marking or identification in the store, those crowdsourced bags sold out. 6 million engagements every time they create the purse. And they've dramatically, I mean, I don't know if your daughters like Coach bags, but my daughters love Coach bags now, dramatic brand awareness increase in these particular areas. By not keeping innovation in-house, but by opening up the innovation to the crowds, to the group of people that they were trying to target. Now, this can also happen inside of companies. In fact, if you think about it, leveraging ideas from employees make the same impact. So this is an internal dashboard where one of the companies that I work with, it's a elevator company in Europe, they actually crowdsource ideas for new products for safety from their internal audience. So they use that same crowdsourcing, the same predictive capability, but for their employees. And what have they seen? A higher retention of their employees. Why? Because they're making an impact. They feel like they have a say in what the company's doing, right? It's not done by corporate, and then they have to execute. It's done by them. They all feel part of the strategy. And they've seen a 20% increase in successful innovations. This is an elevator company, guys. 20% increase in successful innovations by opening this up. So I'll do one more. This is a recent one from IBM. You know, we have a fabulous CEO, Jenny Rometty. And one of the things that she wanted to do, being a very collaborative social CEO, is open up to all IBMers, 480,000 of them, the idea of what does an exceptional customer experience look like. So what we did is we actually crowdsourced from all those 480,000 IBMers ideas about how to make IBM the most exceptional customer experience company in the world. So you can see we have ideas here, what's emerging, what's most popular, and then we applied predictive capability on top of that to say, well, these are great ideas for today, but which ones are going to last over the next 2 or 3 years so they can stand the test of time. So it's not just a fad, it's a trend that will occur, and IBM will be ahead of that particular trend. So using technology, big data, analytics, and social to better innovate by applying crowdsourcing as well as predictive capability in the future. By the way, we did this little jam. Took us 3 days to do it. All the IBMers wrote 11 novels worth of ideas. Think about that. 11 novels came out of the exercise for us to become an essential company. Okay, number 2. So just a couple more that we have left to go, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So we believe that social networks are the new production line. So if you think about production lines of the past, think about how they changed our manufacturing process, completely revolutionized the manufacturing process. We believe the same thing is happening today with social, except it's on the business process side, not a physical production line. So our prediction is in the next 3 years that every business process will have social embedded inside of it to become more competitive. So if you think about customer service, like the Royal Bank of Canada example I gave you, leveraging other channels to deliver better customer service into the marketplace. Marketing, think about that power of one, power of the individual. You can't get there without social being embedded into that process so that you understand what does an individual want, what do they desire. Think about recruiting. So I was just at a recruiting conference at Wharton. Top 100, Fortune 100 companies are there. All of them use social in some way to recruit talent, to onboard their resource, to get the best people into their company. They all use social. So think about to the reception that we had, where we did the hackathon. A lot of companies are just doing things like that online, and based on watching what happens online, watching the person, maybe 140 characters about them, they're making hiring decisions. And actually the recruiters will tell you the hiring decisions are actually better made that way because you watch the process and the work versus just talking to the individual. So it's invading the way we recruit. In fact, many companies today will not take a paper resume. They do Web 3.0 type of resume where everything is linked, so they go naturally to your Facebook page, and your LinkedIn page to check you out. So make sure if you're talking to your children that they understand that for sure companies will go out there and check out what's on their Facebook page and their LinkedIn page for sure. And then of course product development, the way that we innovate, we talked about that. So innovation will change. Today there are over 99 different processes that have had social embedded in them somewhere in the world. For instance, a Bayer, or Bayer as we say it here, from Germany, they've inserted social into their R&D patent process, into their patent process. It's completely changed the way that they work. So let's look at that. So this is one of the interesting things. This is now in place inside of IBM. Again, it's a big company. But this is a dashboard. So our Chief HR Officer, Diane Garrison now, can look every day. And what can she see? She can see the overall sentiment of her employees, our employees. Now, why is that important? Well, we know before we do an opinion survey that might take us 6 months to get to all the employees and figure out what's happening. Every day, it's like having your employees come in and give you a smiley face or a frowny face. How you're feeling today? What's going on? How do you feel? But then you can see in the center, we've got this, what we call the sentimap. So it's a sentiment map, sentimap. And we can zoom in on what are they happy about? What are they not happy about? Is it a communications challenge? Is it a perception? Or is it something that's real in the company that we need to fix? So we know that every day. We can see what's happening every day. We can look at trends over time. And we have a social pulse. So I have it on my phone, social pulse. I can see every day how my employees are feeling about the business. What do they need? What didn't they understand? What can I do better? Now, why is that powerful? Well, people are your most valuable asset that you have in your company, right? There is a war on talent coming like you've never seen before. So being able to retain your best employees and embed that into the way that you do performance management, the way that you do recruiting, the way that you do onboarding is going to be the way of the future, the only way you're going to stay competitive. Let's look at another example. This is Lowe's. Anyone here from Lowe's today? Lowe's. Okay, Lowe's Home Improvement Store, Fortune 50 company. I love this because they've embedded social into the way that they sell their products. So let me show you how you would embed this in the way you sell. So this is a paint tray. Lowe's sells 3 types of paint trays. A good paint tray, a better paint tray, and a best paint tray. Guess which paint tray they make the most money from? The best paint tray. So one day, this woman in Alabama, she had just helped her daughter on a science fair project, and she was looking at her paint tray. She's not selling very many best paint trays because it costs more money. So she said, you know what if I do a science fair project, and I'm going to test out these 3 paint trays, and I'm going to determine which is the best, which is exactly what she did. She posted the results in her store, and guess what? She sold out of all of her paint trays, all of her inventory for the quarter, just by showcasing it. So she thought, this is a great idea. Well, Lowe's has a social community inside for all of their 228,000 associates. So it's like a Facebook community inside for Lowe's. So she posts a story inside her internal Facebook page, saying this is a best practice, and it's in the paint community. Now, how many of you guys would join the paint community? They have a very healthy population in the paint community. So guess what happens? Everybody copies the best practice and the way that she sold it. Do you know in a month that Lowe's made an additional $1 million of profit on paint trays? Paint trays, paint trays. So great use of embedding social into their sales process. And Lowe's is a great best practice. This project is led by a fabulous woman, Clarissa Phelps, so we need to get her here next year because she's done some fabulous things there. Okay, and this is another example of embedding social into your production line. So this is Panasonic. Now I think Panasonic is quite unique because they've actually created a social network for the way that they engage their suppliers, their partners, their customers. They're all in a private social network. They apply analytics on the network to determine new ways to do business. They have a network for each country, so this is one example of some of the new solutions they're introducing in China. They use this worldwide. And the interesting thing is they connect their internal social network to their external social network. So customers connected to partners and suppliers. Did you know today in the world, only 4% of companies have connected an internal social network to an external social network? Only 4% today. So the Dotchess Group, who is a consulting company who focuses in on social, says that number will go to from 4% up to 50% in the next 3 years. And the reason is the benefit. If you do both internal and external social, you get 3.6 times the benefit of having your customers talk to your suppliers, talk to your employees. It makes sense, right? Because that's what you do in the real world. So why not do that in a social network? And we're seeing this happen not just in the US, but all around the world as well. Whoops, wrong way. Okay, so let's go to the last one. Do the first four make sense to you? How the technology is coming together and what folks are doing around the world that's really truly leadership to make themselves more competitive. So this next area I think is probably most important for us sitting in the room, and that's how and why does this make a difference to us personally? So if you think about all the things that we've talked about, this really involves a shift in several things, right? It involves a shift in leadership. It involves a shift in corporate culture. It involves a shift in the way that we work today. And this transformation is in process today. So one of the things we've done is we first looked at that new leader. That new leader is a servant leader. They are someone who is transparent. They share information easily. They are likable. How many times have we heard that up here on the stage? They are collaborative. Who's better at collaboration than women, I would argue. Sorry for the guys in the room. Who take risk and experiment. So there's a lot of attributes here. We actually have a little 10-point quiz that you can go through to look at some of the attributes of the future leaders. And it's not just IBM who believes this. Forrester has done a couple of reports. McKinsey has done more reports on the leader of the future. And there was recently a Harvard Business Review article on the impact of social on leadership. And the reason I think it's so important for us and is such a big takeaway for everyone in the room is that we believe that this will be the new competitive leader. They're different than the leader of the past. And they also play to a lot of strengths that we bring to the table. So I loved one of the things that Penny, I think it was Penny today, who said, or maybe it was Anna, who said things are going to change. They're going to change rapidly. I don't know if I attributed that right. But today in this morning's panel, things are going to change rapidly, and they are. So you really should get ready for the changes that are going to happen from a leadership perspective. Now, from a personal perspective, that's going to change. The culture of companies will also have to change. In fact, my favorite saying is, culture eats strategy for lunch. Right? So if you set out a strategy, it comes from corporate, and it's a beautiful strategy. But if nobody wants to execute it or it doesn't fit your corporate culture, culture always wins. Always wins. I've done thousands of these engagements. I think we have about 57,000 companies. And I can look at those who have been very successful and those who have had problems or failed. Culture is always the reason. Maybe not be the only reason, but it's always one of the big reasons. So how does a culture have to change, and what could you do? What could you take away from this conference and go back and do with your teams? Well, this is a little assessment that we created at IBM. It's free. You guys can take it away. This is just a piece of it. What it does is it helps you to go through with either your management team or your employees. It shows you what do you think the culture is today, and what do you want the culture to be? What's the desired culture? So it deals with things like learning. Are you a continuous learning organization, right? Or do you say, you got 1 week a year to learn and that's it? How do you deal with risk? Do you reward someone who took a risk and failed, or do you cut their head off if they fail? How do you communicate? Does everything have to go through a marketing communications board? Or can everybody communicate? Can you train people to communicate on your behalf? Now, a lot of times what I've seen happen, which I find quite fascinating, is that I'll do this with a CEO and his or her team. And they'll say, oh, we're great risk takers, we're continuous learning, we reward the failure, it's great. And I'm like, wow, this is super. Do you mind if I go down one level and just talk to a few more people and do this? And they're like, ah, sure, go ahead. And quite often, it's a huge surprise. In fact, I just did this with one British company. It was quite funny because the whole senior team was aligned. They were supporting risk, and I got down one layer and they're like, oh my gosh, you are out of there if you make a mistake, like one mistake, right? So it also helps to check at many layers of an organization, because something you think may be accurate at the top, maybe not accurate at the bottom. It's kind of like, what's that Undercover Boss? Have you guys seen that Undercover Boss story? Yeah? So, they go in and the CEO's like, yeah, we did all this. And then you go down and they're like, oh my gosh, there's like nothing here. Same kind of thing here. So this is free. I have an article on this in my blog if you guys want to take this and look at it as well. Now, the other thing about this new leadership area is that I really want to make sure that each of you takes away that you need to manage your own digital profile. So you're going to look at your leadership style at work, professional. You're going to look at your culture, but then personally, given the direction that things are going, given that McKinsey and Forrester and IBM are saying, next 3 years, a lot of your pay, your potential, what you're doing will be measured on your digital reputation, then you need to manage your digital reputation. It can't happen to you by accident. It needs to happen on purpose. So, one simple thing I always tell people is to keep your digital reputation consistent. Why is that? Well, if you look at a brand of a company, you don't see, Coca-Cola go with, red in one country, maybe blue in another, maybe have different, not white in one, black in it's all consistent. So across the different forms where you communicate, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, maybe have a consistent picture of yourself. Have your own little 5-minute elevator speech. Be consistent on who you are, right? So you shouldn't be in a business suit in LinkedIn, and then I flip over to your Facebook page, and there's your, spring break bikini on, right? Very different image that I would get of you. Manage your streams. I've got some examples up here. Like, for instance, I use Hootsuite, and what that does is it enables me to listen very carefully to different streams of thought. So I can look at WITI, I can look at social, I can look at data analytics, I can look at what I need to do. And then have any of you guys started using Flipboard? Okay, great. So you can kind of produce your own little magazine. It's absolutely fabulous. When you're out there, hopefully you're also blogging and tweeting, and you're going to use a URL. You want to start tracking. You want to start using some of your own little social analytics. So you need to register. So don't just go out there and use one of these to shorten your URL, but actually register, and you can actually start getting analytics on this as well. So there's a whole thing we could go through. We could do a lunch and learn on this sometime, how to manage your digital profile. But make sure you're paying attention to this. Don't let this happen to you by accident. Purchase some of your keywords. Google yourself. I don't know if you guys, before you go to a client, your client's Googling you, right? For sure they are. So you need to Google them. You need to find out what is being said about them. But you also need to Google yourself. So you know that when they see that profile, did they find that spring break picture of you? Or, did they find that you just wrote a book and that you're the best in fiber optics and you've done, these 5 things at McKesson? What do they know about you? And does it support the brand that you want? So think about managing your digital reputation. Think about, what do you want someone to think when they see your name, when they Google you, when they go out to Twitter, when they go to LinkedIn? Do you want them to think of a creative, innovative leader? Do you want them to think of a great executioner? Do you want them to think of a great technologist? And then what you do should support that, right? The articles that you write on your blog, the pictures that you post, the influencers that you follow should all go to support that brand that you want, that digital profile that you want to have. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And then the other thing that you guys should do is you guys should also highlight others. So one of the great things about social is that it's not just all about you, right? So if you're out there every day going, woo, I'm so great, look at what I did, check out my products. Pretty soon, if you start out with 100 followers, you're going to be down to, 2, you and your mom. That's it, right? So make sure that you're highlighting and that you're doing the right thing for others, sharing others' success. This is an interview that I just posted to my blog. We got 4.7 million hits on this particular interview. This is an amazing woman. She's a CMO from TD Bank in Canada. She's done some amazing things. And so I highlighted her, interviewed her, and put that on my blog. It wasn't about me, it was about her, what she had accomplished, what she had done. So think about how you want to do that, how you want to highlight others as well. And then as a leader, one of the great things I think you guys could take away, all those things, all those trends that I talked about, you can help to set an agenda with your company on social. I told you up front that 80% of companies are trying to do social. Only 22% know exactly what to do. They're lost. So we have framed a free, so you can take this for free, social agenda that you can use with your company. You can frame it with no matter how big you are. I'll tell you about one of my small companies that I've just worked with in Indonesia. It's a company called Bumba Desa. It's a restaurant. So cool. So they've actually developed their own social agenda. They started allowing their wait staff and the people who greet you when you walk in to share different ideas on a little community. That's a private community, so the competitors can't see it. Now you might be wondering, well, why would they want to do that? Well, all their workers just about were millennials, right? So they want to do something online. So they started sharing that online. Now they've actually opened up a community for food reviewers, and I thought this was really smart. So food reviewers, they come in and they have a meal at the restaurant. They go back home to write the article, and they're like, wow, I wish I knew what spice was in that dish, or I wish I knew this. So they now have a community where they can go, the food reviewer can go and talk to the chef. Did you know their positive food reviews have gone up by 15%, right? Just from setting up this little community. And they started with setting an agenda. So again, you can take this home for free. So those are the trends that I wanted to talk to you about today. So there were 5 of them. So the first one was about expertise and trust, looking at the shift that's occurring in the market. If you think about how we innovate, innovation has completely changed. Social has now become the new network and what we're doing and how we're managing that. We've got leadership changes and culture changes that are occurring as well. I think this is a fabulous opportunity for everyone in the room. In fact, last night, I'm a member of Carolyn's WITI board. We talked about a lot of these trends last night. I know Cheryl has a class on this at Carnegie Mellon. This is where it's at. This is what's going to happen. If you're not a technologist, don't ignore this. These trends are going to impact you regardless of whether you consider yourself an engineer or a computer scientist. This is going to impact every single one of us. So I'll just end. I'd love for you guys to follow me on Twitter, because part of being social is that you're forming a relationship, not a one-time hit and run. And then I also have up there my blog. And if I could, I think I have about 5 minutes for questions. Is that okay? And I see the Mr. Guy Kawasaki's here, so I don't want to take too much of his time. But can we take all of it? Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks, Guy. Okay, so could I, any questions that anyone has? Yes, sir.
First of all, the information here has been extraordinary at lunchtime, all 3 speakers, so I want to thank you so much for that. And I was specifically, because I'm interested in leadership and have been coaching leaders for 25 years, I heard the thing that you said about coming leaders in the world. And I also noticed we used a military language in here that was about weaponry, new weaponry in sales, and about really being afraid of what you're doing and really going for that. It's a military model. And I just want to say, when you introduced this model of new leadership, I thought, thank God we're done with military models. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Good, thanks. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi.
Quick question. How quickly are companies kind of embracing this whole social, I mean, with dollars? I think we all think it's a good idea, but how is it, would you say, a certain percentage or level of company size?
So today, IDC estimates the market at $239 billion for social. That's today, that's for 2013, and that will grow next year by about 41%. So it's a huge amount. The revolution is just starting. So people have started, they've started in pockets. Like I showed you, only 4% do internal and external social. So it's starting, but it's accelerating extremely fast. So I think if you're a company, now's the time to really jump in, and this is why I would tell you that. So if you think about the past, a lot of companies kind of paused on the internet, right? In fact, I had one banking executive, I went in to talk to him about doing online banking, and he actually thought he wanted to become my mentor, and he advised me that people would think I was crazy if I kept talking about this online banking. And he said, if it ever takes off, I'm so confident I will give you a year of my salary because this internet thing ain't going to happen. I still have the letter framed in my office, yeah? I never collected the year's salary, but yeah. But if you think about it, his bank was able to catch up because internet was really more about the technology, right? But think about social. Think about social is about a relationship, right? So a relationship is built on trust, and it's built on time. How many of your best friends did you meet yesterday? I did have one guy raise his hand, but not really sane. But most people's best friends, they're built over time. They're built over shared experiences, right? So there is a competitive advantage here, more so than the internet, to a company being a first mover. There's a big first mover advantage. Yep.
Hi, Sandy. Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I had a question. In the first couple of slides, you had, it looked like a software app that was working on the iPhone. What is that? Because all of us at the table are going, what is that? Because we all want it.
Oh, that little, oh, you do? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we love that.
Good.
Thank you.
So this right here? Yeah. So this is a, that's all right. So this is actually a new app that IBM has just produced. It's called the Expertise Locator. And it's available from IBM. So not a sales pitch, but this young woman right here, do you want to stand up? This is her team that helped produce it. And I can demo it on my iPhone. You can see it in action. You have it on your iPhone. We've had recruiters use it to identify, different matches and skills. We've had finance companies, insurance companies, et cetera, use it. So it's really powerful. So come see it from either one of us. Yes?
Sandy, Mary Meeker gives a presentation and she talks about the growth of social media in various countries. And I was just wondering, you mentioned a couple of examples from Canada, and I was just wondering what you're seeing from some of the other countries that are especially growing.
Hi. I'm Donna Kawasaki, and I do global business development. My question
What was your name? Donna Kawasaki?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Oh.
Yes.
Relation? You're his wife, right?
Both families are from Hawaii.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
He's a
Go
friend.
ahead, Donna. Yeah, go ahead.
And I coach him in hockey.
Oh, that's good. That's good. He needs help there. I heard. Yeah.
No, he's very good,
He needs
actually.
help. Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's one of my best students, really.
Yeah, he tells me that all the time.
Yeah, although he'll probably say I'm one of his best students, hopefully. My question is with regards to follow-up on Mary Meeker. Mary gives a presentation every year, and social media is a very big component to where she sees the growth in just all market opportunities. And she talks about social media in different countries. So Russia, for example, one of the fastest growing markets for social media. South America, one of the fastest growing. You touched on a couple of examples, Canada. I think actually there must be a correlation between the cold and social media. At least I know that is in Canada. But I just wondered if you could maybe touch on a couple of the other countries that you're seeing opportunities on. Because I didn't hear about, for example, Africa, and I didn't hear about Russia and South America. And I see those incredible opportunities, particularly for countries that do want to go global. So for example, I'm sitting with the AT&T ladies, and we've been talking about Asia, and there's a significant opportunity for AT&T to grow in Asia.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, so every country, so this is Louis Vuitton is France. France is actually really taking off. They're very creative in their use of communities. So they're very big in communities and sharing and collaboration. Asia is probably our fastest growing region. So the examples I gave you here are actually 2 Asian countries. So on the right-hand side is a customer of mine in Korea. On the left-hand side is a customer of mine in Singapore. So Asia is really taking off. They're using some different tools and different ways to get to the same audience, but they're flying off the roof right now. So I know you guys are, AT&T is a huge social company. I work with Ann Chow, your Senior Vice President of Customer Service. You guys are already on the path, I know, to going in this space. Japan. Japan is actually one of the fastest growing social countries. They actually do a lot of blogging. Like the #1 blogging country in the world is Japan. So I showed you the example of Panasonic, for instance. They are, accelerating as well. The #1 country in the world for social, anybody know what it is today? From a business perspective, not consumer, but from a business perspective? Anybody want to guess? Brazil, China, Israel. It's actually Germany. Very surprising. It's Germany. And the reason is that, remember we talked about social being part of the new production line? Well, that is really embedding social into business process. And who does business process the very best? Germany. So if you go to Germany, their top banks, GAD, Deutsche Bank, they're all social. If you look at BASF, if you look at Bayer, all social. Across the board, they're very, very, very social. So we actually have a whole report, if you're interested, Donna and team, there's a whole report talking about differences in which tools work best where. So for instance, we're seeing the Middle East and Israel open up a lot of women-owned businesses. So if you're strict in your religion in Israel, you can't actually sell to men. So social is opening up an opportunity for women-owned businesses. In the Middle East, the fastest growing section of their new business area is social businesses by women online. Because again, it opens up an opportunity for them to participate in that value chain as well. So thanks for that question. Okay. That's it? Okay. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.